Okay, it's been a while since we've had a review, but I am back with an IEM which has been making the rounds in terms of hype recently. Now this one is from Simgot, which have been making IEMs for a while now. Though in recent years they've been catching on to the trend of tuning to target frequencies, and I have been really impressed with their EA500. So when they offered to give me a review sample of the EM6L, sure, I'll bite. As usual though, I was not given any money or financial incentive other than a review sample. I requested full creative and editorial control, with all rights to criticize the product if there are any shortcomings that are present. All of my judgments regarding this product are 100% my honest thoughts and opinions, as it always will be. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's see if the EM6L is going to be worth your $100. So the box of the EM6L seems pretty standard, but I do like the Phoenix motif they have here, instead of just another 3D render of the IEM like other Chi-Fi boxes. Though, if you do want that, it is on the side here. Now, it's going with the black and gold theme, right? Though, I guess the gold color here is more like a rose gold or copper, instead of just that yellow kind of gold. In the back, you have some specifications of the IEM, along with a frequency graph, and of course you have the exploded diagram of the EM6L, which is pretty nice. You even have this little scratch-off code here to check for authenticity and probably for some warranty purposes, which reminds me of something that Fio does. So this box slides out from one side, revealing the top flap of the box, which again is adorned with this really nice, shiny, reflective Phoenix logo with a rose gold glow. And when you open it up, it reveals the EM6L on the top. I've still got the protective film on it when I used it because Asian genes, I guess. Going to a box below marked accessories. Where do we open it? Oh, here we go. And you do get a really nice, spacious, semi-hard case with a sort of matte outer texture and this round oval shape. I honestly really like the shape of this case, and I will probably use it for other IEMs as well, so it's a really nice inclusion. So inside of this case is going to be your cable, and it's probably the biggest letdown in all of this. Now, the wires itself are quite soft and supple. I really like the insulation that they use. Got a Velcro wrap, again, always a good thing. And if you can see here, it says salute to art and science. So again, pretty nice. And you even got a jack condom, always a welcome inclusion. Wear protection for your jack, people. Now, I have no gripes with the overall build quality of this cable, but I don't know how it looks on the camera, but IRL, the aesthetic choice of this black wiring along with this really kind of bright yellow gold, it just doesn't look so nice in my opinion. And my second gripe with this IEM is that its cable is using QDC 2-pin. I'm not a fan of this, and I wish they had just used normal 2-pin, considering we're using it on the EA500, the EA1000, and those other IEMs in their lineup. Okay, so if we take out the IEM insert, you get another small box, which, of course, as it says here, contains the ear tips. Well, you're going to be getting 3 sizes of basically AT07 ripoffs. It's a nice, versatile, all-rounder choice. I have no qualms with this selection, but I would have appreciated more ear tip types to be included. Now let's take a look at the EM6L itself. So I'm gonna peel off the seal right on camera here so you can see. Oh, looks like it's a little bit dirty here. Let me just wipe that off with my towel here. Should be a little better. You've got this glossy black look with the Phoenix and Simgot logos on both sides here. It kind of reminds me of the symbol on the Rai IEMs. And considering the fact that the lower priced EA500 already has a metal build, I really wish that the EM6L was made of the same material instead of this glossy black plastic resin, honestly. Now, combining the light plastic with the QDC 2 pins, as you can see, reminds me of, well, a budget KZ IEM, and I don't think that's necessarily the impression you want for something that's $100. But nevertheless, on the camera you can see it looks very nice and professional, and the EM6L is light, easy to fit on the ear, and overall it is very comfortable. So with the EM6L, I find that it pretty much plays well with any source that you throw at it, be it more neutral or warm sounding, and it really doesn't need much amplification to play at its full potential. So even a simple dongle or just plug it into your phone, if it still has a headphone jack, would be fine. Now the AET07 knockoff ear tips that Simgot gives you, these by themselves are already pretty much perfect for it. But I would also recommend the Tangzu Tang Sankai ear tips here. Now these have a similar shape to the AET07s, but they have a slightly softer silicone material, sort of a mix with a TPU thing, which does increase comfort for my ears. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get to the sound of the EM6L. So the sound of the EM6L is pretty much as advertised. It is quite close to Harman, with a few deviations here and there that make it sort of its own thing. And the changes have in general been for the better. Now, it does not put emphasis in vocal performances, but it has a slightly dark shift, which makes it very nice for more ambient and non-vocal genres of music. So we start with the bass. The lower end of the EM6L is very much a sub-bass oriented affair with powerful slam and rumble, and the dynamic driver here delivers a slightly soft bass texture with relatively quick decay and decent bass resolution within the price range. Thankfully, the EM6L does deviate from Harman here in that there is still a good amount of mid-bass that adds some body and some warmth to songs. Definitely something I welcome, but I wouldn't have minded if the sub-bass was even slightly more reduced so that it doesn't show as clear of a gap in quantity between the sub-bass and the mid-bass. The EM6L seems very well suited to heavier genres like EDM or dubstep, especially considering this low-end performance. The lower mid-range of the EM6L has a decent amount of warmth, which plays well with its emphasized bass. There is a little bit of bleeding from the bass into the lower mids, but it's not unforgivable. And it may even be a bit beneficial if you like your music to be a little more thumpy. The upper mid-range of the EM6L, it seems a little less prevalent than the usual crop of our recent Chi-Fi releases. So it tends to push vocals to the side, and it sits alongside instruments instead of being on top or being slightly behind them. So this made quite a noticeable difference to me because I'm used to the VDSF kind of moondrop tuning or sort of the emphasized peanut gains from Tangentium. But with the EM6L, I do find myself gravitating more to drum and bass tracks, more ambience types of musics, which the EM6L handles really nicely. Now, my nitpick here would be that the mid-range overall, it's not the best for micro details. It separates major elements of music very clearly, better than the average $100 IEM for sure though. The treble of the EM6L is something I would call sharp, but in a good way. It does not have this natural clarity or a crystalline quality like the Kato treble, but the detail in the treble here is rendered very sharply, distinctly, without being sibilant or hazy. It's thanks to a tasteful deviation from Harman here. They increase the lower treble registers, so it avoids a harsh drop-off effect if you stick close to Harman. Treble detail here is average for the price, I guess, but its rendition is solid, and again, it favors electronic genres first and foremost. So the soundstage width of the EM6L is a bit wider than average, giving adequate space for instruments to be separated, but the soundstage height is somewhat rudimentary. It's there, but it's rudimentary. It gives a modicum of varying height to musical elements, contributing to, I guess, a somewhat weak, but to be expected amount of imaging ability in this price. Separation of macro details though are excellent. I can totally see the EM6L with a $150, even a $200 price tag if we only consider its macro detail abilities. However, its micro detail retrieval leaves a bit to be expected. It's a bit weaker than usual. Considering that it has 5 drivers and the $100 price tag, the micro detail performance here, it's lacking a bit of finesse. Dynamic range is also average, could be a bit better, with most details being able to play well, but with the more quieter, subtle elements of music, it's observable, but it's a little lost in the mix when there are louder details just taking over. Okay, so if you pit the EM6L against the Truthear Hexa, I can see that both have a similar kind of build quality, although the Hexa uses a combination of matte resin and the metal faceplate, whilst the EM6L, it opts for a lighter, seemingly thinner, but glossier black plastic. The Hexa, the shell itself has more sharp edges and it has a bigger nozzle, whilst the EM6L, with its more rounded shell and the smaller nozzle, makes the EM6L the more comfortable IEM to wear. Sound-wise though, the EM6L has a bit more pronounced of a bass slam than the Hexa, as to be expected from our graphs. Mid-range on the Hexa is more of a diffuse field neutral style, with forward and prominent vocals, whilst the mid-range on the EM6L is more subdued, where vocals kind of blend in instead of standing out. Treble though is kind of meh on both. They're both good, don't get me wrong, but it's not anything revolutionary. Now soundstage, again, kind of similar on both. Hexa's has a bit better imaging compared to the EM6L here, but the EM6L has better macro detail separation than on the Hexa. Micro details on both, roughly on par. Now, the question you'll have to ask when considering these two IEMs is whether your music library has more vocal-focused genres, or is it leaning more towards the electronic and instrumental side of things? Okay, now let's look at the EM6L versus the Kiwi Ears Quartet, which also plays roughly in the same price bracket. Again, we see similar resin plastic builds, although the Quartet is more flamboyant with its sort of hydro dip pattern, whereas the EM6L, it's comparatively more stealthy with the glossy black plastic and just that little accent silverish logo. Note though that the Kiwi Ears Quartet has tuning switches, whereas the EM6L, what you buy is what you get. Regardless though of the switches of the Quartet, whether it's turned on or off, it has a warmer, lower mid-range presentation than the EM6L. But the EM6L has more bass impact overall of the two. Now, the sharp treble from the Simgot IEM hands it a slight edge in perceived clarity, whilst with the Kiwi Ears Quartet, it is more subdued, but it plays well with the Quartet's overall warm signature. Now, with the switches of the Kiwi Ears Quartet turned on, it takes on a warm, bright tuning, which is contrasted with the neutral, dark kind of tuning style of the EM6L. With the strong macro detail abilities, the EM6L basically edges out the Quartet in this particular element, So if you're looking for a more analog style of sound presentation, the Quartet would be the interesting thing to consider. But if you aim for something that's probably a bit better at portraying modern genres, especially electronic stuff, like I said, the EM6L would be your pick. Although in the past, Simgot has been an established player in the chi-fi world, they remain largely unnoticed until the release of a recent lineup. Catching up to the tuning trends of modern chi-fi, they now have releases spanning from the budget level to the mid-range, each with their own little something to offer the consumer. The EM6L is no different. It slots into the $100 price range with solid tuning fundamentals, along with thoughtful modifications to the Harman target to offer basically a compelling and very value-filled package. Though it is not the best suited for vocal-oriented genres, its impressive macro detail retrieval, along with the strong bass performance, will make it quite popular with fans of ambience and electronic music. But yeah, overall, that's it for the EM6L, and this is Marion, signing off.